Welcome to Elevation Nation with your hosts Sam Panich and Parker Yablon. Elevation Nation is a community focused on bringing together young adults who are elevating themselves and others every day. Each week, we welcome a new elevator to share their story and experiences to help you conquer the real world.
Elevation Nation, we are hyped today because sometimes you just got to have emergency podcasts. And this is an emergency podcast because this guy we met at our speaking engagement down in Palm Beach, literally 2.5 weeks ago. And we loved his energy. We loved his vibe. We loved his story. And so Parker and I, we moved some things around to have an emergency podcast with the one and only Braxton Bartlett. Welcome to Elevation Nation. We are so excited to have you join our community, join our world, and more importantly, just spend more time hanging out with you, man, because one evening was not enough. So we are just honored to welcome you to Elevation Nation, Braxton. What's going on, brother?
Hey, we're doing good, man. I appreciate the kind intro, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on. Like you said, it has been a little bit of last minute. So obviously, you know, when it's right and when it's meant to be, you make things happen, you make it shake. So thanks, guys, for having me on.
Of course, the world always brings together good people. I believe that wholeheartedly. And honestly, for you, uniquely for you, you saw us in action
hmm
at the gentleman's table, and you saw us in action doing what we do best and elevating a room, not on a podcast, but in person. And Braxton, you were one of the guys that was like, okay, you know, you were like raising your hand up front during the little icebreaker rapid fire. I was like, okay, he's going to be engaged. He's into it. But I
Uh-huh.
thought it was really cool to see you consistently engaged throughout the whole thing because I know it's a lot of up and down and everything in between. Got to give us the feedback. Did you like
Yeah.
it? Did you walk out of there elevated?
Listen, you guys, clearly this isn't your first rodeo. Definitely not your first rodeo. You know, when you meet somebody who is just like through and through an extrovert, like they're just an extrovert, you can talk to people, you can meet people you don't know. They always tend to bounce off of each other. So, you know, when Brad from Modern Gentlemen hosted the event and, you know, flew you guys down and, you know, you guys made some time in your schedule, it's one of those things where you just hit it off with people, right? You see the message they're putting out there, you see the energy they're bringing to an event. And listen, I understand public speaking or speaking in front of a crowd, no matter how big the crowd, is not always the easiest. So the fact that you guys were able to, you know, do it without a hitch, it didn't look super rehearsed, it looked natural. Kudos to you guys. And, you know, obviously here we are now being able to connect and talk a little bit more.
Totally. Obviously, it wasn't our first go. We have a little practice at it, and we're glad you enjoyed it. Brad put on an amazing event, and Sam and I walked away very, very inspired. But Braxton, we're here now, a couple weeks later on Elevation Nation. We start every Elevation Nation podcast the exact same. We've done 450 plus of these. We got to start out with an elevator pitch. Tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think that's a question a lot of people just either don't know or always have to ask themselves, or it changes throughout the years. Because my answer now I'm now 26 is very different than it was when I was 22. Right? I think first and foremost, who I am is I'm somebody who is ambitious. I think that's the number one thing. Ambitious can be, you know, very vague and it can mean a lot of different things because you can be ambitious in your career. You can be ambitious in your relationship life, your family life, and your health, your wellness, whatever it is. I think I'm somebody who really prioritizes ambition in every facet. That's who I am. That's what I like to be about. And we'll get into the mental motto I know a little bit later, which is one of the key things I took from you guys at your speaking event in Palm Beach is I think that a single word or a single phrase, and I think for me that single word is ambition. I think that's what it'll tie down to, and I think that's how I could best describe myself.
So, Braxton, you're hinting at something that we've talked with many elevators about, and we call it the elevator curse or blessing. And we have this debate with multiple people, and, you know, folks that come on and join Elevation Nation, we like to say they are all ambitious, right? In all facets of life. That's kind of what unites all of us, that hunger and that desire to do more, get the most out of life, and become the best versions of ourselves. And so I always ask people this when I know that they're ambitious is do you think that ambition or that addiction to elevation is a blessing or a curse?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a two-sided coin. I think that you're asking the wrong question. I think the question you need to be asking, when is enough enough? Because if you're somebody who's ambitious, but you know this is my exit, this is where I want to be, and then I'm done and I'm cruising. And take finances, because that's probably the number one thing people are ambitious about. What's your number of money you need to make? After that, are you pulling the brakes? Are you chilling? Are you going to live a low cortisol life in Europe? Or are you somebody who is so addicted to it that it becomes an unhealthy obsession? I think being ultra ambitious is phenomenal as long as you have your limits. As long as you know, once I hit this point, then I'm going to dial things back, then I think you can actually appreciate the fruits of your labor. However, on the adverse, if you're somebody who's constantly pushing, constantly going, and you never really get to appreciate the fruits of your labor and it becomes a never-ending cycle, I think that can be a curse. So I think it's very nuanced.
I got to follow up on that before Parker jumps in because I think that's a beautiful answer. And I'll tell a quick story. I was telling a colleague this actually last night at dinner. Um, when I was growing up, I grew up in fine, middle class family. We were good. But I remember I came up with a very weird, strange litmus test that was a goal for where I wanted to be,
Mhm.
with my career. And I don't know if you guys have something, but I remember vividly, I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school, and my mom would be shopping on the weekends for groceries, right? And we always made 2 stops. One at like the local normal kind of run of the mill grocery store, and we bought pretty much everything there, and then one at Whole Foods just for like 1 or 2 things that were nicer, right? Fish, better fish or whatever. And I remember being like, I wanna make sure this sounds so weird. I don't know if I've ever shared this on the podcast. I wanna be in a position where I don't have to think that way, where I can just like buy for convenience and go. And it was such like a simple, weird example. But I remember my mom being like, Whole Foods is expensive. We're not buying like canned corn there. We're going to the other grocery store, which makes perfect sense. And I remember being like, that's my litmus test for success. So I'm curious, Parker and Braxton, growing up, like, did you guys have something you're like, when I hit that, I will have made it?
That's a really good question. I think that changes throughout the years because when you're in a middle school and high school kid, you obviously probably have a little unrealistic expectations, at least in your 20s, that is, at least in your 20s. I think as a young kid, it was being financially free to kind of buy what you want when you want. I think having the ability to buy things, tangible items, that's kind of the thing as a kid you always want, whether it's food, whether it's a PlayStation, a new TV, whatever the case is, you want physical items. And as you get older, you want time. You want to have so much, I guess, money, so to speak, so much flexibility that you have the freedom of time. So I think for me now, the biggest thing I want is I want to have the time to do what I want, whether it's fitness related, traveling related, podcast related, whatever that is. But I do think it's a evolving thing because you asked my litmus test as a kid, I would have loved the newest PlayStation or the newest video game or something like that, and that obviously changes.
I mean, it completely changes with time. I mean, I remember growing up. I mean, I grew up similar to Sam, very comfortable, secure family. But I had some very much luxuries that my parents gave me, whether it be private school, summer camp. We lived in a nice house with a pool. My dad drove really nice cars. We had really fancy things. And you know what?
Parker's being really relatable right now to the broader
Right.
audience
Yeah.
here.
Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm gonna be very vulnerable here, and it all came crashing down during the 2008 financial crisis when we went from living in a very, very nice life that was sheltered, and it was completely taken away when my family was like, "Wait, we can't afford our house. We can't afford these things. We can't afford these luxuries." And then at 12 years old, I had to look myself in the mirror and be like, "Wait, I always thought that's what I wanted. It was the material things that would make me happy." And then when it was all taken away, I was like, "Wait,
Yep.
what really makes me happy? What makes my parents happy because they had it. Now they don't have it, but you know what? They're still pushing on. They're still trying to make a life for my sister and I and a life for themselves." And so that completely at a young age reframed values, and then you go through you grow up, and then you graduate from high school or college or wherever it might be, and then you start doing it for yourself, and you realize what, you actually value and what you want. And to your point, Braxton, I think, where is the point where you're like, "Oh, I need to put an end goal or be able to get to a point where I'm like, you know what, that's enough." But oftentimes I also think it's a trap, where you can get to a point and you're like, "Wait, I thought 5 years ago that was what I wanted to be, but now it's 5 years later and I have different
Fair,
responsibilities. I have different tastes. I have different things. So now I have to keep going and keep
fair.
going." And then next thing you know, you live your whole life and you look backwards and you're like, "Wait, where did it all go?
Yeah, you're
Time
right.
went away."
100% right. 100% right. I think that kind of ties down to your family as well. Do you have a good woman in your life? Do you have good parents? Do you have a good support system with friends? Because if you've got all of that, and right, I grew up very comparable and similar to you guys, very comfortable, great families, loving families. If you have that as kind of your rock, you're never going to get an unrealistic head, or the likelihood of that happening is very, very low because you're grounded, you have your values. So that I think kind of is a mitigation to that potential problem, but obviously it's not a one size fits all.
I find it a little bit hilariously ironic that we had this deep of a conversation, over dinner and over beers at quite possibly one of the nicest hotels in the country. Like it's just it's funny to me, right? We have on the surface level, everyone wants to, have those fancy watches. Which again, shout out to the jewelry company that was there; they were amazing. To the clothing company that was there, incredible sponsors. But all that stuff is almost like a surface level benefit byproduct. I almost guarantee that we had the deepest conversation that's ever been had at the Colony Hotel. Because I think what's beautiful is we all we all recognize that that is surface level luxuries that we enjoy and appreciate, but there's a level deeper that we wanted to get to as gentlemen. And for me, I think that's one of the most beautiful, ironic things that happened during that time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Braxton,
Absolutely.
I got a question for you. I mean, you graduate. I know you were an athlete in college. You're 20. You said you're 26 years old. You're CEO of a business right now. You guys are crushing it. How do you stay even, like, how do you bring yourself back to a place when really crappy or shitty things pop up? Because that's inevitable in building your own business, right? You don't get to the successes without the challenges and the things that go the wrong way. And you're in it as a leader, a CEO of your own business. How do you keep a even keel mindset when those things come up?
I think for me, I really embrace the things I personally enjoy. Personally. So for me, you mentioned sports. I played collegiate and professional basketball. Basketball was always something that's near and dear to my heart. So if you ever stressed about work, go to the park and get some shots up. Go do something that makes you feel good. If you're into weightlifting, go to the gym and lift some weights. Clear your head. If you enjoy video games, play a video game. If you're a musician, go play some music. Do what you like, and when you do the things that you like, you never feel like you're kind of in a rut. So even when things would get a little shaky or a little difficult, you're still you. You're still embracing the things that you enjoy, the things you prioritize. And I think most importantly, by prioritizing it when things get harder, you never really lose sense of who you are. And it kind of, in a sense, keeps you grounded. So I know for myself, whenever I'm a little overwhelmed with business or a little overwhelmed with anything, I go do some type of physical activity, whether it's basketball related, weightlifting, run, anything like that. That for me is kind of a de stressor. And that's what works for me. Now, granted, everybody has their own, but that's kind of where I lean towards.
So, Braxton, I'm glad you said that. Parker now is, believe it or not, the I'm not going to say better because I can still beat him, but the one more into basketball than me. But one of the things that I do when I'm Parker, we'll have to play one on one soon. Don't worry. When I'm feeling stressed or anxious, it's so similar. I have an image that I put in my head. It is my high school basketball gym on the shooting gun. This was back in, I don't want to date myself, but Beyonce's new album had just come out, and me and the
Okay.
boys putting on the loudspeaker, Beyonce's new album, just racking up shots.
Yeah.
And that like consistent flow state, whatever that is for you, whether it's basketball, whether it's running, I know Parker loves to run,
Mhm.
find that flow state where you can turn off your brain
Yeah.
because sometimes that's all you need 5 minutes to just give your brain and anxiety a break. So I love that example. I think that's beautiful. I want to, before Parker counters that he can beat me in basketball, I'm going to move on. Um,
Wait, yeah, I was gonna jump in on that
all right, go
topic.
ahead.
I
All
was just
right, I'll
gonna
let you.
say to the point no, 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 I mean, we can, leave it on the court. There's something about getting into, like, the elements of some sort, whether it be running outside in, with the wind blowing against your face, maybe the sun's beating down. I love a good rain run, like, you feel alive when you're doing that.
You do.
When you're playing a basketball game, the phone's down, your head's up, you're running up and down a court with 9 other humans on a court trying to put a freaking piece of rubber through a metal little rim. Like, there's something awesome about that, and getting back into the elements, physical activity or not, there's something about it that just, like, to your point, Braxton, when I'm in a rut, I feel like, okay, everything else doesn't matter besides right now in this
Yeah.
moment. Physical activity is one thing that does that so well.
Yeah. For sure. And again, all three of us are athletic guys. I know you guys are both runners as well. It's the ability to find your individual niche. There are people that are just not as sports driven and they love art or music or movies or whatever your particular niche is. For me, I've always just gravitate do what you really enjoy. Even if, oddly enough, it may sound a little juvenile. Like, you could be a grown man and still prioritize or really like some, like, considered nerdy things, right? Whatever you enjoy really can center you, and, I found that that really works for me.
So, Braxton, I want to ask about the transition from being basketball 24/7, right? College athlete, professional athlete. Then all of a sudden it was, there's a new dream, there's a new world. We've talked to many, college or pro athletes where one of the biggest transitions they had was going from my life is here, my goal is here, this is sports 24/7 to something totally different. And so talk to us about those first couple weeks, months where all of a sudden, I don't want to say the dream ended, but the dream pivoted and you had to remake that dream. How did you
Yeah,
feel?
it's a great question. I actually had this exact conversation with a kid from my alma mater the other day. Is I handled my tail end of college very differently than probably 90% of other people. Is that I was very realistic with myself, and to give major credit to my father for this as well, because he was very realistic with me as well. And that was that I, based on my athletic limitations, was not going to the NBA. I wasn't going to play in EuroLeague or a high league. I was good enough to play, and I got a contract to play overseas, but I wasn't that level. So what I realized as a junior in college was I really wanted to start setting my foundations for after. That way my transition was seamless. Because I knew it was the summer going into my junior year of college. I said, I've got 2 years completely free. I don't have to pay for housing. I don't have to pay for meals. I have 2 years completely free. I need to take advantage of these 2 years because after that, I'm going to get hit with the real world, plain and simple. And the university that I went to, if you guys are familiar, is Lynn University, which is a smaller Division II school in Boca Raton. And for anybody who listens, it is basically a country club. That's what it is. It's a country club. Students that are paying to go there come from ultra high net worth families from all over the world. And what I did was I did exactly what I did with you guys. Was I made friends, you chit chat, you meet people, you go on dates, you go to the bars, you do whatever, and you meet people and you formulate friends. And one of the guys that I had met at school as a junior came from a very wealthy family from Africa. And we partnered on a project together where we both put up equal amounts of capital to fix and flip a house. That's what we did. We fix and flipped the house. That fix and flip made a very large amount of money. It was a little under six figures, but it was great. And, as a college kid, when you have no money, that's like the holy grail, right? And I took that and I said, okay, now I've got a nest egg. I've got a little bit of cash that I can work with. I can play around with it. And little by little, you start stacking. You start stacking and you start doing that kind of stuff. So I handled it in a way that when I was in college, I set myself up for when I got out of college, I already had a little bit going for me that I wasn't thrown to the wolves, so to speak, which I'm sure you guys hear all the time is a very scary feeling and it's a very realistic scenario. I did not want that to happen to me. So when I finished basketball and I finished that and I kind of got into the real world and I formulated my company, which is now what it is, I had already set the seeds years prior to get that kinda going.
I think it's cool that you were able to get that experience in college, especially while you're probably focused a lot on basketball and academics and trying to do something cool outside of that. I know Sam and I, Elevation Nation certainly was not the first business idea that we've had. We've had many, many dating back to freshman year of college when we first met. I think it's really cool, Braxton, though, that is you found success in business while you're still in school, focused on your other thing, which is basketball and having a good time. And then now you look back and you realize that basketball wasn't it for you. And you're taking those skills and probably something that you're like, wait, I actually really enjoy this. Not only does it pay me well, but I enjoy the process.
Of course.
Talk us through like how that's carried to where you're at now and where's that passion sit with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So one thing I told myself was I never wanted to do something that I didn't enjoy, which I feel like is a really bad habit that a lot of people, particularly out of college, get into is they take a job they hate. You're miserable, but you're making money and you need the money to pay bills. I told myself I never wanted to do something that I dislike ever. So the businesses that I started up, it was always something that I liked. It was something I found interesting. It was never a boring business. It was something I found because, as I'm sure you've heard, the best businesses are the ones where people are passionate and they actually enjoy what they do. So I took that kind of, I never want to do something that I don't want to do towards business. And similar to you guys, I had a lot of things fail. One of my most prized failure was I formulated a company called FTP, which I'm assuming you're both familiar with the fitness tracking, Fitbits, Whoop apps, things like that. And I poured a ton of money into R&D and development and got it patented to create a patch that had an adhesible Band-Aid style that it could track athletes under their uniforms in competition, which is something the NCAA and professional organizations do not allow. Long story short, that thing went tail up, did not work. Tons of money spent in R&D and patenting, nothing happened, completely didn't work. So, but that was something I was interested in. It was something that I liked. So it makes the failure a lot more easy to live with, so to speak, when it's something you like. So I think that's something I've really carried with me is focusing on things that I enjoy. Because even if it doesn't work out, I wasn't miserable in the process.
Mm. Sam, you remember that whole phase we went through is, it's a win-win, right? It's not a
I was about to
failure. It's
slap Parker. He
always
was saying that so many times. But yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
but
It's a good message.
well, I was reading this book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and her whole premise in this book is that when you do hard things, two things happen. You either do really well and good things come from it, or you completely screw up, you fail, but you know what? Good things come from failing. And I was going on this whole thing that, to your point, Braxton, you did this company, you were passionate about it. You spent a lot of time and effort on it. I can guarantee you, regardless if it failed, you wouldn't be the human you are today
Right. Yeah.
without that failure, without the lessons that you learned, without the mental fortitude that you were building to do something on your own. So, regardless, when it comes to elevating, you got to just go do it because you never know where it's going to take you. But I can guarantee you, it's going to take you to a new place with new perspectives and a newfound mindset. And that's a good thing in my eyes, regardless of where it happens.
Of course. Of course. And, I know one of your guys' big things is, what's your mental like? How's your mental? How do you view yourself? How do you view situations? How do you view the world? I think we're really aligned on that because I was more so along the lines of, it's funny. I had a gentleman, I'm originally from Ohio. I had a gentleman that was a neighbor down the street from me in Ohio, and he passed away years back. And I remember him telling me as a kid, my parents asked him, what were some things that you really loved? Do you have any regrets? You lived a good life, things like that. And he said something, he was like, there was a lot of things that I regret that I didn't do that I wish I would have done. And obviously I'm paraphrasing, it was 10 years ago by now. But he basically said that he regretted not doing things more than the things that he did in his old age. And, I've kind of taken that as I really want to live that way. That way, by the time that I am old and gray, that I don't regret not pulling the trigger on anything. That's kind of how I've gone through the day to day.
I think it aligns with my mental motto, Braxton, which I know you heard. down in Palm Beach, which is live curiously. I think so often we find ourselves stuck in comfort zones because they're natural, they're easy, and we gravitate towards them. And sometimes they're expected of us. I think you hinted at this. A lot of people get jobs. They're told to have this certain job. They got this degree. Their parents are proud of them and they get stuck. And Parker and I give this advice often. As you can imagine, we have lots of young people that reach out to us and ask for career advice. And they say, I hate my job. I want to quit. And I go, take a step back. Let's get more specific. What part do we hate? Do we hate who we work with? Do we hate what we do? Do we hate waking up early? There was a point when I hated my job because I could not wake up for the life of me at 6:30. My body was just not adjusted.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to get a little bit more particular when we tell people, go follow your dreams and go do whatever you want. Like, I agree. I'm with that. But let's take advantage of this failure. I'm doing air quotes for people not watching and really hone in on what we like and don't like, because I think it's really difficult to say, go do something you love. I mean, Braxton, I've been in the working world for 8 years. I'm older than you. I still don't know what I love, man. I like some things. I like talking to people. I like
Uh,
podcasting. I like public
sure.
speaking. I like
Sure.
beating Parker's ass in one-on-one. Like, there are things that I enjoy to do, but I don't know exactly what my passion or my calling is. And I think for some people that don't feel that, they feel extremely lost because they look at someone like you and go, well, Braxton had basketball and he loved it. And now he's got real estate. Like, how does he have so much passion for these things? So what advice do you have for someone that maybe likes some things and doesn't love something yet?
Try more stuff. Honestly, try more stuff. I mean, it's bizarre because you'll often hear times, and I use ESPN because the national championship was the other day, and they made it. I don't know if you guys watched the broadcast. ESPN said something about one of the gentlemen. His name's Terrace Reed, who plays for UConn. Terrace Reed, they were talking about pre-games. He plays piano. You're talking about a big 6'10" guy from the inner city who one of his hobbies is playing piano. And I'm like, if you're somebody who doesn't really know what you like, try things that you don't know if you don't know if you like, even if it's a little unorthodox or doesn't fit the status quo, because maybe you do. I live in Fort Lauderdale. We have more run clubs than I know what to do with. I see them every day. There are so many people there that I know do not like running, but they go to them because it puts them out of their comfort zone and they meet friends. And that's just one example. So I'm like, just try more stuff. You wanna learn to play chess? Go play chess. Maybe you'll love it, maybe you'll hate it. You wanna try going to an MMA gym and you wanna get punched a little bit? By all means. It's just there's no shortage of stuff. So if you're somebody who's like, you feel lost, you don't know what you want because you haven't tried everything. It's impossible for you to not like anything. It's impossible. You will like something. It's just, what do you like the least?
We live
That's
in
what I
this world, though, and this is the counter argument that's been coming up more recently in our podcast conversations, is that the phone, the piece of technology that we all have access to, is creating a fake reality of
Mhm.
your world
True.
and making it very easy to get dopamine hits that probably you'd get from a run club or playing the piano or learning the chess. But now people can get it from the comfort of wherever they are when they swipe that damn screen and see someone else living out a dream or doing the thing that they thought or would want that they could do, but they never got to it. And
Sure.
so people now are gravitated, and they probably don't even, a lot of people don't probably even realize it, that they're just fueling their own desires through the swipe
Yep.
rather than the do.
Sure.
And that is a world that we're living in more than ever. And mental fortitude, man, we could talk about this for so much about getting out of that comfort zone. And so, Braxton, I'm curious, what is your perspective when you find yourself maybe leaning into the dopamine, the easy dopamine hits too much?
Well, I'm fortunate enough I have a beautiful girlfriend, so she keeps me on my toes. But that's one thing. I'd say for the normal person, you can obviously do traditional things such as setting reminders on your phones or things like that. I always like when set my calendar and my schedule, I do everything in 15-minute increments. Little things that you can do. One of the biggest productivity tips that I was ever given, and this was given to me by my high school basketball coach, is when you feel like you're being lazy and you do something, put shoes on, because your brain correlates putting shoes on with you have to go do something. That's just the way it works. Now, if you're anti shoes in the household, that's one thing. Put slippers on. But putting shoes on, something as juvenile as that, really helps. I also implemented something in my life. It's called the 1 minute rule. If a task around the house or in life takes less than a minute, I do it immediately. The amount of productivity you feel. If you just ate and you have a dirty dish, it takes you less than a minute to clean it immediately. You want to switch your laundry from the washer to the dryer, do it immediately. Make your bed, do it immediately. Things like this, it builds up momentum. It gets you going. It sets a tone. After 21 days, it becomes a habit. And little by little, you start becoming an ultra productive person who avoids inherently these dopamine hits on your phone because you've got so much other stuff going on. That's what my take on it.
I love these little life hacks because it's sad, but it's true. We are in a day and age where we kind of have to trick our own brains. And I'm going to be honest, I'm smarter than my brain. I'm going to make sure that it works to my advantage and does what I want it to do. So I love that. Um, Putting your shoes on is a great one. My basketball coach used to just tell us, brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. So I
Okay.
was in high school brushing my teeth lefty. He also told us to get tougher. He didn't give me something specific, so I interpreted that as walking in snowstorm to school
Sure.
in my basketball shorts. That was
That'll do it.
not a good idea. But hey, we're here now. So I love that. I think those are great tips, Braxton. I want to ask you a little bit more about what's next for you, right? You've done so much already in your past life. I don't know how you're 26. I feel like you're older than me and Parker with your wisdom. So you've got a lot more to do. You're obviously uber successful in some of the businesses that you've started and, of course, have faced some failures. But Parker and I, we want to know what's next for you and
Yeah.
when are you hiring us?
It's a good question. We can talk off air about that one. I started the podcast with everybody has their, or you said litmus test. What is your level that you need to get to? For me, my primary focus right now is it's the financial. Because whether you like it or not, the amount of money you have drives a lot of freedoms in your life. And whether we like it or not, especially in America, the freedoms you have are almost directly correlated to the amount of financial success you have. For me, I have a goal with my company that I'd like to get to where it's month over month net cash. Net cash. Once I hit that number, then I'm good. I'll probably be looking to sell a minority stake to an outside firm, a foreign fund, something along those lines, and then I'm going to sit back and chill. It's talking about vices. Everybody has their vices. I love traveling, most similar to most people, but I don't like the traveling like when we're talking backpacking and things like that. I want to go to the nice places, the nice hotels, eat at the nice restaurants in these places, things like that. So I have a number in my head, and once I hit that number, I think I'm going to take some serious time and really go explore and enjoy it. And kind of going back to the thing that elderly gentleman from years back told me is I regret the things I didn't do. You're only going to have a healthy body before kids once in your life. And you better take advantage of it when you do, because when you do get to that point, there's no going back. So I think for me right now is I got about another 18, hopefully months left, and then we're going to take some much needed vacation time.
Well, vacation is no vice in Elevation Nation by any means. Vacation is where you learn how the world works, and
Uh-huh.
vacation shapes your perspective by traveling and seeing other cultures. So, ain't no vice in vacation. Unless Sam, I don't know, loses in basketball 7 times in a row while I'm with him on vacation. We'll have to do the summer, Sam, when we're on our camp tour. We'll have plenty of basketball hoops to access to.
Yeah, I got to see the results to that one. I got to see the results to that
It would
one.
be good. Sam wants to get me in a boxing gym. Sorry, that is not happening. I am a married man with a future and a partner that I can't just come home and just, have my shit rocked.
I
So,
get it. That's a smart choice. That's a smart
yeah.
choice.
Yeah, you get it, Braxton. Okay, so we're going to do some rapid fire. I know you were the king of rapid fires down in Palm Beach.
Talk
Then we're
to
going to
me.
wrap this thing up. What is You got like a favorite basketball memory? It doesn't need to be from college or your pro days. Like, is there a memory that just like lives with you?
I do. Yes. So when I was in high school, I was sophomore in high school. So my freshman and sophomore year, I went to a public high school, and then my junior and senior year, I transferred to a private school that was known for basketball. My sophomore year in high school, we were playing in our regional tournament in the postseason. And I don't know how your guys' regional tournaments worked, but it was always the games were back to back to back to back. There was a gentleman who played for one of our rival schools, and they were playing in the game before us, and he was a very highly recruited kid, had a lot of colleges that came to see him. And a lot of these college coaches came to watch him. And I myself was highly recruited, but not to that level. And these schools that were probably a little bit higher than the level I could have gone to, we're talking not necessarily blue bloods, but some high major schools, stayed to watch my game in high school after this kid finished playing. Because, of course, we played immediately next. And it was the worst game of my high school career. Worst game of my high school career. And I sit back and I'm like, well, if I would have played good that game, what kind of offers could have got? What schools could potentially gone to? What friends would I have made? Where would you be differently? So that's the one memory I'd come back. I was like, that was really a turning point for me because had that have gone a different way, my entire life up to now would look completely different in terms of a basketball analogy.
I mean, I'm just flabbergasted. I'm really not because I know how deep you are, Braxton, but you just picked your favorite memory being something that was painful, that
Sure,
put you outside your comfort zone.
sure.
Like most people, they think back, when did I score the most points? When did I play in front of the biggest crowd? When did I do something truly incredible? And
Yeah,
I love that perspective of because of this performance, the universe was looking out for me
of
because it
course.
knew I needed to go down this path. And I think Parker and I, as we've gotten older, trusting in the path, trusting in the universe, and kind of doing what we can to put ourselves in positions to succeed. But success is only up to something
Mm-hmm. Of
hopefully bigger than ourselves. And
course.
so I think that's just a beautiful, beautiful answer. I would have loved to have seen you ball out in high school. Maybe you'll referee our game, me and Parker
Just let
this
me
summer. We'll
know.
bring you
Just
out.
let, just let me know. If you need a little tune up, I got you. Whatever you need,
Deal.
I'm here.
I love it.
This-
I love it.
Sam's favorite memory from high school basketball was getting Jalen Brunson some Gatorade after, all those
That is
big shots.
absolutely my
Yeah,
favorite memory.
pretty much.
Yeah. I kept that man hydrated. So you're
Hell
welcome,
yeah.
New York Knicks. Um, all right, Braxton. I know you mentioned you love travel.
Sure.
What is your number one spot on your bucket list right now?
Mm. Number one spot. That's great. So I have my bucket list devised into seasons, maybe a little different than most people. I have different bucket lists for different seasons. So the trip that I have coming up this year, I'm going to Zermatt in Switzerland for Christmas. That was something that I say bucket list because I'm trying to live in the moment. That's one of the upcoming trips. The number one thing I think I would love to see would be New Zealand. New Zealand, it's off the beaten path. It's beautiful. Everybody knows it's beautiful, but it doesn't get a lot of tourism. It's expensive and far to get to. So a lot of other people will go to a little bit more basic locations like Japan or a lot of places in Europe. I think New Zealand would be a place that I really could just find like peace and beauty and all that kind of stuff.
New
It's niche.
Zealand,
Niche.
it's far, it's niche. They got volcanoes, a little surf action, great
Right.
food, great people.
You speak
Uh,
English there. It's,
Speak English. Their
it
summers
just
are winter, our winters their summer. So make sure you
exactly.
don't mix those up when you're doing your planning.
Of course.
You
Of course.
certainly won. All right, two more questions for you, Braxton. We'll wrap this thing up. We ask every single person who joins Elevation Nation. I have a full bookshelf now because of all of our recommendations. What's a book recommendation you got for Elevation Nation?
Mm, okay. Have you gotten a lot of David Goggins recommendations?
Maybe one or two. I actually don't even know if I have a David Goggins book on here,
My
so give
favorite
it to me.
my favorite book, I'm telling you, changed everything about the way I view everything was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Can't Hurt Me. You wanna talk about a book that is emotional, that lets you put yourself in somebody else's shoes. David Goggins is notoriously known for being one of the baddest motherfuckers on the planet, and that's what he's known for. And his book talks about him being a fat, overweight kid from a domestic violence family and becoming who he is today. You want to talk about a book that can really help shape your mental and make you feel weak as just a human being and make you want to be tougher? That book changed a lot of things for me. So I'd recommend Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Put that
He's
one in the back burner. Sam knows. Sam knows. I've always found him very intense, but you've sold me. You've sold me.
You know, I agree. He's a lot. But his book, this particular book, at least the beginning stages of it, when it kind of sets the foundation on who he is and you kind of correlate it to your own life and you take the little bits and pieces, it really is, you know, there's a lot of philosophy put in there. There's a lot of psychiatric terms put in there and ways in which you're able to, really just dissect it and incorporate it into your own life. So I liked it.
His story's crazy. It's a great book. Yeah, Parker, get it on the bookshelf. Now that you have a functioning bookshelf. About time.
Thank God.
All right, Braxton.
Old bookshelf broke, but Braxton, there were too many books. Like literally.
That's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have.
It completely broke.
I hopped on the podcast and all of a sudden it wasn't there anymore. Parker's like, dude,
Okay.
it snapped in the middle of the night. So yeah, we're glad Parker has a new bookshelf. Braxton, you know this. We end every podcast episode and every Elevation Nation workshop asking and helping folks come up with their mental motto. And if I remember correctly, you and Parker have a little bit of similarities in yours. So Braxton Bartlett, what is your mental motto?
We do. And, one of your guys is one of the best things you did in Palm Beach at your speaking event was you asked the mental motto and it put a lot of people on the spot. So I myself am, and when I mentioned earlier, nerdy fictions or nerdy things I really love, I'm obsessed with the Roman Empire. I love it. And the old Latin phrase, audentes fortuna juvat, it translates to roughly fortune favors the brave. Going back to the very first thing you said about elevator pitch regarding myself, if you're brave, that's a synonym for ambitious. Those things kind of go hand in hand. I think if you're somebody who can be brave in every facet, relationship, business, athletics, friendships, all that kind of stuff, I think it'll work out for you more times than not. So that's what my mental motto is.
Good Latin term. I love it. It fits you perfectly. We need to send you some more stickers so you can have your mental motto on an Elevation Nation sticker all over Fort Lauderdale and maybe one day New Zealand. Let's go with that. You slap a mental motto sticker in New Zealand. Braxton, man, just an honor to have you on. Obviously, the world, I believe, brings people together for certain reasons, and there's no coincidence in the fact that we met a couple weeks ago. It was purely reason. Maybe we won't know, or maybe we will find out in the future. But we're so grateful to have you on the podcast. Welcome you to Elevation Nation. Certainly not an ending, but just a start. Man, we're just so grateful. On behalf of Sam, myself, Elevation Nation, thank you, brother.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all having me. I'm sure we'll talk here soon. And I'll see you guys hopefully here in Florida at some point here soon. All right,
All right,
guys.
Elevation Nation. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Elevation Nation. If you enjoyed our conversation, hit that subscribe button to get notified when we release a new episode. If you would like to join Elevation Nation or get more information about the nation, please visit our website at www.elevationnation.io. Until next week, Elevation Nation, peace.